Welcome back. I'd like to set up this next bit of conversation with a little clip of a Greek newscaster just doing his job. So pay attention to your own thoughts and reactions as you watch this clip.
Άρχισε το μεγαλύτερο πείραμα στην ιστορία της ανθρωπότητας. Στραμμένα στη Γενέβη τα βλέμματα της παγκόσμιας επιστημονικής κοινότητας, καθώς ξεκίνησε στο ερευνητικό κέντρο ΣΕΡΝ το μεγαλύτερο πείραμα του αιώνα. Χιλιάδες επιστήμονες από όλο τον κόσμο, μεταξύ τους και Έλληνες, προχωρούν αυτή την ώρα στην πρώτη φάση του πειράματος που έχει ως στόχο να εξηγήσει πώς δημιουργήθηκε το σύμπαν. Σκεπτικιστές εκφράζουν τους φόβους ότι το πείραμα θα δημιουργηθεί μια μαύρη τρύπα που θα καταπιεί τη γη. Ασφαλές χαρακτηρίζει το πείραμα ο Στίβεν Χόκινγκ, εκφράζει ωστόσο αμφιβολίες για τα συμπεράσματα που θα προκύψουν. Συνεχίζεται στη Βουλή η συζήτηση του φορολογικού νομοσχεδίου μετά από μια επεισοδιακή συνεδρίαση χθες βράδυ με κατέρωθεν πυρά και εντάσεις. Συγγνώμη. Η κυβέρνηση αναδιπλώθηκε στο θέμα των τεκμηρίων διαβίωσης και η ένσταση αντισυνταγματικότητας της αντιπολίτευσης εισέπραξε ηχηρό όχι από την κυβερνητική πλειοψηφία. Αύριο η ψήφιση του νομοσχεδίου. Βήμα πρόκληση στα προκριματικά του Μουντιάλ, η εθνική απόψη και τέτοια του εθνική ομάδα ποδοσφαίρου με αντίπαλο τη Λετωνία στη Ρήγα. Σε περίπτωση η Ελλάδα εξασφαλίσει σήμερα την τρίτη βαθμού του Γκρουπ, θα οδηγηθεί στην πρώτη θέση του Μουντιάλ. Έχει ευθυρό στην Αττική. Άνεμη βόρειο-βορειοανατολική ως 5 και στα ανατολικά έως 6 μποφόρ. Η θερμοκρασία θα κοιμαθεί από 23 έως 33 βαθμούς Κελσίου. Τα επόμενα νέα από το ΣΥΠ 99,5 σε μία ώρα.
So, what went through your mind? Given the context against which I asked you to watch this, you might have guessed that this Greek newscaster reminds me a lot of Jeremiah. I mean, things are falling apart all around Jeremiah, and often enough, not just around him, but on top of him. So, what kept him going? My take is that it's the unshakable conviction that he'd been conscripted by God. So, what are Jeremiah's concerns? And how does God respond to those, I think, understandable concerns? Or remember back toward the beginning of our venture in the First Testament, we talked together about a theology of living biblically set against Genesis and the creation mandates. And I referred you back then to Os Guinness, that great little paperback called The Call, and his thought-provoking discussion of the primary call as followers of Christ that was by him, to him, for him, that a divine calling is not primarily to a place or a thing, or even to a given job, but it's to a person, to God himself. And then remember we reflected briefly on Guinness' argument that a secondary calling, considering who God is as sovereign, is that everyone, everywhere, in everything, should think, speak, live, act entirely for him. Well, that about covers everything, doesn't it? I mean, business, labor, teaching, driving a bus, healing, preaching, counseling, the list could go on. I'm convinced that Jeremiah gets it. He understands the primary call, and he understands the secondary call, and he understands that thinking, speaking, living, acting for Yahweh is clarified by some specific instructions about a specific message that he's supposed to deliver to a specific audience, whether they warmly receive it or not. Remember, I mentioned Guinness' argument that calling is the truth that God calls us to himself so decisively that everything we are, everything we do, everything we have is invested with a special devotion, dynamism, direction, lived out as a response to his summons and service. So, do you think this conviction is maybe why Jeremiah, when he's beaten and imprisoned and commanded to shut up, he responds, If I say I won't mention him anymore or speak anymore in his name, there is in my heart, as it were, a burning fire shut up in my bones. I'm weary of holding it in. I can't. So, in chapter 1, Jeremiah recounts this special calling that he receives. It seems to reflect both substance and a pattern that we've seen before, especially with Moses, but then again with Gideon in Judges chapter 6. Isaiah chapter 6. And in each case, God takes the initiative. He confronts the person and he presents his commission to the person. And in every one of those cases, the person demurs. I don't know how. I've never done that before. I'm not qualified. But in each case, God pushes back with gentle but firm reassurance. I like what Norm Hobble observes in his article on the form and significance of the call narratives. It's in ZAW volume 77 back in 1965. He concludes the word of the call narrative gives the individual's credentials as a prophet, a messenger, an ambassador from the heavenly council. So this word of the call summarizes the ultimate commission from the master. Let me suggest something else about Jeremiah's call. Let me get you to look at the text in chapter 1. What's the point of verse 5? I mean, what practical significance does this claim carry? God makes 4 claims. The first, etzorecha, I formed you. It's the same verb that's used in Genesis 2:7 of God's creating humanity. I think the theology that's taught in the antecedent revelation of David's Psalm 139 informs this text in Jeremiah. Jeremiah, God's saying, your height, the shape of your nose, the color of your hair, your innate strengths and weaknesses aren't just known by God, they're intended by God. In one important sense, God's reminding Jeremiah that it was no mistake that he was born into a priestly family who lived at Anatot, so that he went to Anatot Elementary and Anatot High School. See, God was at work preparing Jeremiah for such a time as this. Relationships, experiences, God was using those so that neither physical nor personality traits were legitimate excuses for rejecting the call. The second thing God does or says is Yadatecha, I knew you. Again, the informing theology of Psalm 139 indicates that he knows me intimately. Herb Huffman observes, Yada is a significant term in the language of ancient Near Eastern covenants. See, the great king and the vassal knew each other. Third, Hikdashtika, I consecrated you. The verb kadash expresses ideas of being set apart, declared sacred, treated with special care, treated as holy. Remember at Moses' call, he was instructed to remove his sandals because he was on holy ground. Back at the beginning of the nation itself, it's said to have been consecrated, made holy to the Lord. Jeremiah 2:3. So here's a young man who's being told that he's being consecrated to act as a spokesperson for God to a people who were once consecrated, but don't live in light of that consecration. The fourth, natateka, I have appointed you. The common meaning of natan is to give, but it conveys the meaning of to appoint or to assign or to commission, like in 1 Chronicles 16:7, where David appoints Asaph to worship leadership So Jeremiah is commissioned to deliver a "Thus says the Lord" message to the nations. There's a broad scope in this commission. He was God's spokesperson to Judah and Israel, chapters 1 through 25, but also to the nations, 25 and then 46 to 51. And this commission is a formidable one. So, how does Jeremiah respond? Let's think about that in the next segment. See you in a bit.